Welcome to Very Honored Frater BT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 85, in which I interview Hannah Haddix. But first, Transformations and Footnotes. For those of you who are new to the Esoterinerd podcast, this is the segment in which I recite my father's book, Transformations, which he wrote in 1976. He divided it into chapters and verses, so I read it verse by verse. This is Transformations, Chapter 2, Verse 20. The body-stuck ones, the ape-necks and neckers, they are amusing. Should we tell them that it is found in nudism, keeping it in their pants, or both? Maybe they still think it's in drugs. Drugs alter brainwaves, that's true. The problem is, when the body-stuck ones think they're getting spiritual, just how are we going to tell them what it's like to watch flat agreement consciousness in group minds transform? They'll find out that they've already found out, one way or the other. There are ghosts in the pyramid rocks, and there's magic in these words. Verse 21. The thing is, though, that getting goosed on acid and walking into buses either hurts or instantaneously puts the stuck ones someplace else where they are surrounded by their memories, or both. Dope gets them into glimpses. You and I found out that it's like the parable of the blind man and the elephant. The added twist is that the doper among them grabbed the elephant by the nuts. He was a male elephant anyway, and the elephant, forthwith and appropriately in that he was thick into his must, yelled a great yell and stomped the doper. You and I have seen that blind one still stuck out there on the astral. He's running around, now sort of getting that he can kind of see, trying to tell the others that he is okay. Well, sort of. When you don't wake up either here or there, till you do. You and I, we know that, don't we? Verse 22. Those who are committed to higher purpose, what shall we whisper to them? Perhaps the question is, what shall we not whisper to them? They may already know of the crimson sick rose. Shall we tell them who is the rose? Shall we tell them who is the worm eating it away? No. Why should we bother? They already know. And they will find out no sooner or later than now, when they learn how to stop casting aspersions upon others not in their pet movement, or not living up to their precious expectations within that movement, and when they get that, they get how to uncreate the aspersions instead. What do we say to those who gloat in expectation of Armageddon? What do we say to tunafish who want to be canned? Blessed is the tunafish whom the stuck human eats, for the tunafish will then become stuck and human and consider it an only? They'll play around for a while, till the realization that the transformation is complete pounces upon them, or yells and stomps them, or whispers at them and they're still wherever they are, wherever else the other stuck ones believe that is. Now they'll know that they know and knew all along. They have an option. The option will haunt them and taunt them. They cannot help but listen to themselves. Aye, there's the rub. And now for the footnotes. So I looked up ape necks. I guess it's a reference to a poem and it has to do with virginity. I don't know. I thought it might be offensive. Turns out it's not. It's interesting that he was such an occultist and a Buddhist and had all these ideas, and yet he was so square. He was actually already a college professor by the time kids started smoking weed in college. He was only 28 in 1968, but he used to walk into the classroom. Well, I'll let him tell it in his own words.
67, 68, 69, I'd come into classes at Pasadena City College, and it'd smell like a Canaba's kitchen in there, and I'd come in and singing, "Don't bogart that joint, my friend, because I've got some narcs in the hall," and everybody would run out of that's where I got accused of being a narc. I just scared all the dopers out because they were following things up.
So there's that. I took a slightly different path myself. It's interesting what he says about the crimson rose. I've had that in mind for a long time. The tuna fish who wants to be canned, for those of you who don't understand, if you have one of those Bibles, just skip to the very, very, very end. He's referencing the gold box that all the saved are supposed to end up in. Our guest tonight will be telling us about the Temple of Psychic Youth, a bit about Genesis P-Orridge, Vipassana Meditation, Ayuhuasca, the Coyotel Church, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, the Aghori, the Process Church, dreams, sleep paralysis, and some other things. And so, without further ado, let's get to that interview, shall we? Greetings, sir. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So we're here at a coffee bean and tea leaf in, where are we?
Beverly Hills, I believe. Yes.
And it's nice to meet you. I'm meeting you for the first time today in person.
Yes, indeed.
Been friends for a few years online. But
In the Matrix, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started down the path to weirdness?
Well, okay. I would say it all really began when I was living in New York City at 18 years old. Just moved there from Arizona. I was fortunate enough to move into the Gates Institute, which was the Brooklyn brownstone where Genesis and Lady J, they owned this house and they occupied it, along with some other Temple of Psychic Youth humans, members of Psychic TV. So I started dating the keyboardist to Psychic TV. His name is Marcus Person, Marcus Fabulous Circus Aurelius Maximus Person. And so I met Genesis, not even knowing who Genesis was or the legacy or all the things that she's accomplished. So I basically just got indoctrinated into the Temple of Psychic Youth. For the years that I was living there, Jen put me through what she called the Psychic TV School of Magic. And she taught me all the things. She introduced me to ritual magic, to sigils, to the cut-up method, to all things that are how to induce trance, all the things that a magician needs in their toolbox to manifest. So from there, I mean, I continue to work with Genesis, and I keep my Psychic Youth ties tight. But from there, I've explored other things, and these days, it's the thing that resonates with me most as a magician is the ties between art and magic, and how creation is the direct tie to manifestation, to understanding the self, to understanding the will, and to enacting it. All humans who walk the path of self-realization and self-manifestation must create. We must put something new into the world. We have to express ourselves, to know ourselves. And so for me, that's magic, is creation.
Very cool.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Well, you definitely put a lot out there yourself. I'm a fan of your posts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you done your Vipassana yet?
I did.
How was that?
It was one of the most transformative experiences I've had.
Very cool.
It was really difficult. Sitting and meditating for 11 hours a day doesn't seem like something that would cause such a mental breakdown, but there were times in that Vipassana that I just all these things come up when you sit with yourself and you're still and you allow first of all, you learn really fast that you have little control over your mind, and that it is a raging beast that will just go to every end of the world, and trying to hone it in and to put a leash on it and control it, it is so difficult. It was more... It made many changes in me that did not all last. I was totally sober, stopped drinking, stopped smoking weed. I was a vegetarian, stopped eating meat, did all this until I lasted a couple months, and then on Halloween, it was Satan's birthday, and of course I had to drink some whiskey, and then from there I just kept on drinking the whiskey. But on Satan's birthday you have to drink whiskey.
Nice.
So, but for those months I was still maintaining. I was doing 2 hours of meditating a day, and really maintaining this really wholesome lifestyle, and which was unexpected because I didn't think that there would be any lasting changes. I went there for the experience, and I had signed up for it when I was going through a really intense breakup and wanting to die, and I was like, I need something to help my soul. Yeah. So with Vipassana, you usually have to wait a couple months to get in because of the waiting list. So by the time I went, I kind of gotten over my heartbreak, and I wasn't trying to exit myself off the planet anymore.
That's probably good timing.
It was good timing because at that point it was just okay, I'm not fully obsessed with this breakup anymore, and I still want to go for the experience. So I was just open to it. It was just I didn't feel like I needed it.
Yeah.
But I just I wanted to go and have the challenge. And it is hard. A lot of people, 10% of the people dropped out by the end. You see the mats, the cushions in the meditation hall. Just people leave and leave, and it was amazing. I plan to do it again. I think all the humans should do it because you learn a lot about yourself. You are able to control, you find these techniques of harnessing your mind and where you can direct it, and how the senses and how we sense things. It's our entire experience. We are just this flesh pod of these senses that. A sensory being that's taking in all this different information, and all of it affects us, and we're not always aware of the things around us that are affecting us, that we are consciously absorbing like a sponge, and it stays. We record all of it. It's in our subconscious forever, and things that we see, do, experience, touch, taste, feel, hear, it's all within us. And there are ways to, if you sit with yourself and you allow the things to crop up, then you can deal with them and release them. And that it's a beautiful practice. Vipassana is great.
Very cool.
Yes.
So when you mentioned pre and post ayahuasca before?
Yes.
When did that happen?
So I traveled to Peru. Was it February? Late February of this? Yes, it was mid-February. Very recently, a couple months ago. With my mother. We went together, and that was quite the trip. Yes,
very
indeed.
Cool.
Yes.
Did she also do ayahuasca?
She did.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was her idea. She really wanted to go and take ayahuasca because she found people talking about it on the internet, and she wanted to, she wanted to take it to get
the
over.
best reason to take it.
Right. I heard about it on the internet, and I heard it. It's 10 years of therapy in one evening.
YouTube, it's pretty reliable.
Right. She did send me some YouTube links about it. I was like, thanks, Mom, I know what ayahuasca is, but that's wonderful. And yeah, she called me up and she said, I want to go. She originally had it in her mind that she wanted to go to Brazil. She said, let's go to Brazil. I want to take ayahuasca for some healing, to get over some childhood trauma. And I was wondering if that's something that you'd be interested or willing to do. And I was like, you don't have to ask me twice, Mom. I will take crazy jungle drugs with you.
That's awesome.
In a foreign country, yes. It was great. She didn't like it very much. But, the experience isn't it's not a recreational drug.
Right.
You have to deal with a lot. She didn't like the hallucinations. She said it was too scary.
Right.
And it is scary sometimes.
Yeah. And then if you go down that road, then it's even scarier.
It's true.
And it's tricky to be like, no, it's not. It's fine. Okay, now it is fine.
Yeah. The mind, it plays some tricks.
Yeah.
I did see some pretty scary things. But overall, I thought that it was a very positive, beautiful experience, and it opened up a lot of doors. It was deeply healing. It cured me of my indoctrinated misogyny, which was a huge one for me. Yeah.
How so?
Well, in my life, I've always had a hard time with relations with women. There's been a lot of competition for like sexual attention or men, and relationships, just a lot of backstabbing and cattiness, and a lot of just competition.
Yeah.
I've always just surrounded myself with men. Have had a hard time with my relations with women, except for like a few solid humans. And then when I took ayahuasca, I had a vision of Kali Ma, and I saw her in everything. She was God, and she was in everything. And I realized, and I had all these visions of the sisters in my life, the women in my life, and I just saw that. If you say or think or do anything nasty or disrespectful to or about a woman, you are saying and doing all those things to Ma, because she's in all of us, and that's just blasphemy.
Yeah.
And that women are all beautiful and all deserve the love, and there's plenty of love. Like, there's an abundance of love, and there's no reason to feel any sort of competition. Feel like if somebody else is getting it, that you're not.
Yeah. It's an artificial institution that's just been implemented for so long that people think that it's weird.
Yeah.
It's like football teams or something.
Totally.
Like, it's just like normal because it's normal.
I just saw the brilliance and beauty in women, and it's just like, it was so healing. It was like duh, like it's insane. It's insane to try to like trip up a woman on her path, because like we have to stand together, and there's to get weird about a woman because of some sort of like sexual attention you think that you need to be getting, it's just insanity, and it's culturally indoctrinated, and that was a huge takeaway for me, as well as our role on this planet as humans, and how we really need to be taking care of our planet more. I saw what I believe to be what eternal damnation is. And eternal damnation is when, let me preface this by saying that reincarnation is absolutely real, and we have to go through many lifetimes in order to basically like take ourselves out of the samsara, to take ourselves out of the flesh world, and eternal damnation is what happens when we kill our planet, where she is no longer able to produce lives. There's no more bodies to incarnate into. So the souls who haven't figured it out by the time we destroy our own planet are going to be wandering around aimlessly on this dead, barren planet that cannot produce life, and they're stuck there for millions and billions of years until something happens where either like another dimension, another world, but basically like I just saw these souls wandering, lost, hungry for a body, hungry for the experience, hungry to transcend, but they're stuck because they killed the one thing that is that's allowing them to be. Yes.
That reminds me of the vision of Avalokiteshvara looking at the sentient beings and weeping because of the suffering of samsara and all of that. But like a first-hand experience of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
It's a human experience.
So how about, is it pronounced lamb or the gray alien that Crowley saw?
Yes,
You do a lot with
The
is
aliens.
it lamb or is it just
I think
gray?
I
mean, in your pictures.
In my photos, that's
Yeah, when you-
a Balian.
Oh.
That's my Balian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, lamb is Aleister Crowley's
Oh,
thing.
okay.
But my life-size boyfriend alien, who I sleep next to every night I'm at home, is the alien.
Okay.
He's my Balian.
Oh, alien with a B on it.
Yeah, like Balian.
Oh,
It's like it's
B-A-E-L-I. I get it.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
that makes sense. Nice.
I love aliens. I've been obsessed with space travel and extraterrestrials for all time. But things have changed post ayahuasca about the aliens, because I actually had an alien vision. I saw the aliens, and dudes were not friendly, and they were trying to take over, and they were trying to basically enslave us. And if they accomplish that, it'll be the death of spontaneity, the death of creativity, the death of love, the death of compassion. They have no emotions, and I had to fight them. I fought them when I was on ayahuasca, and the only weapon that I had against them was, and I know this sounds new agey as hell, but it was love. I had to just send out love. Yeah, so, and also I saw that because I used to be all about space travel and colonizing other planets and just like getting the fuck off planet Earth. But I saw that if we develop the technology required to colonize other planets, we are actually like enslaving ourselves, and we will mutate beyond. We will no longer be human beings, Homo sapiens. Like shit, it would change. It would change us, and I felt so connected to the Earth for the first time, and the planet I was born on, and I like had this real connection with Earth and this love to just help her and concentrate on this beautiful planet that we already have, and the wanderlust of going to elsewhere. It was kind of cured, which is weird because I never thought that was like a bad quality or a bad mindset to want to get off planet Earth, but things have shifted.
Yeah. It makes me think of when people like want to get out of their situation, so they want to get to some other situation, but then realizing, oh, I actually feel at home in my own situation, and I can transform it so that that I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's probably written in my DNA to try to run from problems by occupying different physical space, just because my mother is a nomad and like my parents are travelers.
We're all over here, so
yeah. So it's just like my whole life was like watching my mom run from place to place to place. But it's like, actually, Mom, like you just need to like figure out how to be secure in your own skin and then work from there.
Right.
You can't change, a change of home, a change of zip code is not going to help you feel okay about all of the things.
Yeah.
Puppy.
So let's see, what else besides the temple is the Temple of Psychic Youth?
Yes.
After that, so like early on in your career.
So early on, it was the Temple of Psychic Youth.
But then later.
Yes. Here, so I have been.
I know there's spaces.
There are spaces. Most recently, besides the work I do on my own, I've been collaborating with the Coyotel Church. I was initiated as a magist in the Coyotel Church about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. And so that's a delightful cult. It's the first church of art. In the Coyotel Church, we believe that not everybody is born an artist, but everybody is born with the ability to create. And we must create our way forward. And we believe in true art versus stillborn art, things that people make that are not from any genuine place, that don't elicit any sort of reaction or emotion, or just stillborn. It's just
Right.
dead. It's
Yeah.
not, there's nothing magical. There's nothing of substance in it. So true art. And I've been doing death curses on corporations with the Coyotel Church. Last time I was in LA, we did a death curse on Nestle. Before that, we did a death curse on Monsanto in Minneapolis. Those are always a lot of fun. Very bloody things. And it gets good response, and people, it raises awareness about these corrupt corporations that are insidiously taking over and fucking with our food and our resources and our planet.
Yeah.
And they need to be called out and probably sentenced to death from an art cult. And so, yes, and that's why I'm here in LA presently, is we initiated Cherie Rose last night into the Coyotel Church as a living saint. And so my coyotel duties brought me here.
Now, you were telling me a bit about her, but just because some of my audience might not be familiar.
So Cherie Rose is the partner, or was the partner of Bob Flanagan, the super masochist. He's dead now. Bob Flanagan and Cherie Rose really paved the way for the BDSM culture. They did a lot to open the awareness and kind of bring it more to the surface of these BDSM relationships. And I can't recall what illness he specifically had, but basically he lived far longer than he was given to live by the standards of people with that illness, because through the healing of masochism, of getting cut and beaten and tortured and all the delightful things.
You hear that, Sal? Do you know? You don't know Sal Santoro?
I don't know Sal.
Okay, he's down here, so.
Is Sal into the torture, the beating?
I interviewed him. I forget what episode number, but yeah, we started off talking about the healing, the use of BDSM in a healing context. Yeah. He built his first dungeon in my house. What's now the LA Sanctuary. It was originally
delightful.
him hanging his ex-wife from the ceiling.
That's splendid.
Yeah, and then he went on to run Dungeon Club in Hollywood for a while, and he's kind of big in the S&M scene.
Lovely.
Now I think he's going to be focusing on occult, but with a little bit of an erotic kind of BDSM edge to it. I won't say too much, but he and I are talking about collaborating on something in the
that's
relative
exciting.
near future. So.
Awesome. We look forward to that.
Yay.
Yes.
Cool. So Genesis P-Orridge. Joe Shantz, are you listening? She said she knows him. She can maybe hook up an interview.
Indeed.
That'd be really cool.
Jen
Maybe
Jen
on
is-
Skype.
Yeah, Jen Jen's one of my besties. I can definitely facilitate something.
Very cool. So
Yes.
for people who don't know, since you probably know better than I do, would you be able to give them kind of a rundown of...
Genesis P-Orridge?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Where to start? Jen has her fingers in... Genesis is a cultural engineer. She has changed culture and magic for all of us. She coined the term industrial music, had the first industrial band, Throbbing Gristle, did a lot for the body modification culture. She was doing piercings and tattoos when they were extremely illegal, had friends who even did jail time. Started the Temple of Psychic Youth, which is a magical group that utilizes sigil magic, trance states, drugs, sex, the power of the orgasm for manifestational purposes. Genesis started Pandrogyny, which was a gender project with her partner Lady J, who is now passed. They went through a series of surgical procedures to look as closely alike as possible. They were so in love, they wanted to be the true reflection of each other. Genesis has written books. She does everything. The Temple of, Psychic TV was the first band to to have the video component be just as important as the music. So every psychic TV show, you have the video projections, and it was like a whole integrative experience of the visuals and the music. And the visuals and the music always kind of go back to the work that was being done in the Temple of Psychic Youth, which is now, it used to be TOPY, T-O-P-Y, Temple of Psychic Youth, and it has since evolved to T-O-P-Y, the Temple of Androgynous Individuals.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And that's the thing about Genesis, is she is always about evolution and changing and doing something new. You know, a lot of people find like fame or a recognition for one thing, and they just keep on doing that thing over and over again. And Genesis is just always doing something different. The Sound of Psychic TV has changed. Like, they've done all the genres and all the things. Yeah, it's a very evolutionary, forward, mutating thing. Genesis is just a total alien-brained being. Jen is not human. I've spent enough time with Jen, taken enough ketamine with Jen to know that she is not a human. But yes, she's one of my dear friends, and she has definitely changed my life. But she's changed the world. She's Genesis.
Very cool.
Yes.
What do you think hasn't been said that people ought to hear?
You know, it's funny. I'm such a, as you know, I shamelessly express myself all the time.
With images.
Yes, with images, with words. Yes, written words. So I don't have any like deep looming secrets. It's all out there.
It seems like there's a. For some reason, the word metamodernism comes to mind. There's like an overarching. There's like certain assumptions that are being challenged, like in the way that you express yourself, without specifically pointing them out. It's just assumed, and everybody who, you know, isn't just like, oh, it's a girl. You know, everybody who's into it is into it because of what's being challenged. So what's the word? Audaciously? so overtly?
Yes, yes.
But what is it that's being challenged? You mentioned the misogyny that you were in agreement with before.
Yes.
But didn't realize it.
Right.
Maybe that's one thing.
Yeah, I think that all things should be challenged. I'm about breaking taboos. The human experience, not allowing society to sway or control who I am or what I do or the kinds of things that I get myself into. There's also maybe a little bit of masochism, the dangerous situations I put myself in. It's thrill, but I think it's also, I mean, what is the purpose of existence if you're not going to push it to the limits? You know, if you're not going to be willing to have an experience, if you're not going to be willing to put yourself out there and do something that is out of the norm. I mean, that is how we learn our lessons. That's what gives us character. That's what gives us wisdom. And I'm just really about finding my own way, making my own path. Doing things for the sake of experience, even if you know it's a terrible idea going in. You know, it's like sometimes you just have to do it, so then you can be like, okay, I learned that lesson for myself.
It's not as bad when you know that it's going to end in a train wreck,
right?
As it is when you like go into it thinking it's a Cinderella, like Disney, like 1950s. You know, like it's going to end happily ever after or something.
Yes.
If you like are completely jaded on that,
definitely,
life is much more fun.
But even I have to have my own limits. Like there are a couple things that. Usually I say like, oh, we have to try everything at least 7 times, but there's some things that I just won't do because like for example, I'm never gonna smoke meth. Like that's just one thing I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna go there. And I love drugs. I like trying all the drugs.
I've seen enough.
Before and after photos. Like I'm not trying to fuck up my face.
So
So there are some things. But at the same time, I wouldn't judge someone else for thinking that they need that experience.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I think that we would all do a lot better as humans on this planet if we were open to other people's experiences, and we're open to not trying to tell people what they should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
You know, as long as, of course, you're not hurting anybody.
Right.
You know, you have your morals intact of right and wrong. But even still, I think right and wrong they're all societal standards, and I think that they need to be challenged.
Right.
And they need to be broken. And the things that do work, yes, stay in place, but don't just follow it because that's what all the humans around you are doing.
Right.
I have a bit of... So I have an affinity for the Aghoris, the Aghori Babas, who they're part of the Hindu culture, and the Aghoris believe that you must embrace all the taboo things in order to get close to God. So they cover themselves. They live in the cremation grounds. They cover themselves with the ashes.
Meet those guys.
They're amazing. They eat human flesh. They drink out of a kapala. They take all their meals out of a kapala, which is a human skull. And they'll eat feces. They do everything because they believe that everything is divine. Everything is beautiful the way it is, and it's God created it as it should be. And in order to get close to her, you need to embrace all the things. So I've spent time with the Aghoris. I lived with Genesis in Nepal for 2 months in 2009, where I met many Aghoris. Most notably the Aghori Baba Paglananda, who is now passed, we believe, because he was very old. And I met this man, and I don't know, I feel like it might have been an Aghori curse in a way, but basically we were in the cremation grounds and we found him inside this stone structure, and he was in deep, deep trance around this fire pit. And we were brought into this circle it was me, Genesis P-Orridge, Jason Louv, and Tree Lotion, who is Jen's spiritual brother who lives in Nepal. And we were all brought into this circle, and Aghori Baba Paglananda had his eyes rolled back into his head. You can only see the whites of his eyes, and he was just going off, like just chanting and going off on a spiel. Of course, I couldn't understand what he was saying because he was either speaking Bengali or Nepal. I'm not sure. And so he said he was referring to Genesis, who he hadn't seen since 1999 when Jen was still a man. And said, "Oh, that's the English fellow I met from whatever year." And Tree Lotion was translating all this for us. And then he pointed to me and said, "Oh, she's going to reach the highest state of consciousness in this lifetime." And then referring to Jason said, "We'll definitely see him again." And then was like continued to go on this rant and dug up these potatoes from this fire pit that he gave to Jason and I, that we do believe might have been cooked in human fat, because that's what Aghoris do. Jason ate them and got really sick. So yeah, he may be a bit of a Aghori cannibal. We don't know for sure. But yeah, so when Aghori Baba Paglananda said that I would reach the highest state of consciousness in this lifetime, it was hard for me to wrap my mind around that being a truth or legitimate. But it may have been a curse in a way that, like, I feel like maybe I haven't pursued the traditional paths. I haven't done things that I may have done before because I already got the call, you know, that I would be reaching that state. When I did ayahuasca, though, and I was welcomed into Kali Ma's celestial palace, and I sat amongst the god and goddesses, and I was welcomed as one of them, in that moment I felt like maybe that's what he was referring to, because I saw her sweet face and her embrace, and I felt her love, and it was like I felt like I had made it. I hope that there's more. I hope that it'll continue to escalate.
Yeah, you got plenty left in this lifetime.
I hope so. I very much do enjoy this lifetime, despite seasonal depression. The periods of time when you think that it's all just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. I think traditional paths aren't for everyone, especially at this period in history where you can see all the traditional paths and then read the commentaries about what is wrong with them.
Right.
I mean, so it's like, it's almost seems silly not to explore and learn about all of them and then put together your own sense of reality. Like, why would, unless, like in that, rubbing shit all over yourself. I became Catholic for a while. I went into a thing counterintuitively. I became a choir boy in a Russian Orthodox Catholic church and just completely immersed myself in that egregore and decided to see it all through that point of view after having already been Wiccan and, all this other stuff.
Yeah, interesting. What was your takeaway?
I got to connect with my ancestors on that side, because it was the Orthodox one, so it was like really far back. Like I was there in Constantinople, like kind of thing. And so, I mean, it had value as far as that goes, which I guess is similar to the value that for me, Western esotericism, like traditional tarot and stuff like that, like my dad taught me tarot, so I mean, I have like a familial tie to it, where a lot of people, left their evangelical home and came across the country and then learned tarot as a thing to identify themselves as different from their family. For me, it ties me to my family. So yeah, it was almost a sense of like trying something that hadn't been really tried in my own family for a long time, because they were from different parts of Europe that hadn't been aligned with the Vatican for a while, what I mean?
Yeah.
Though there was some French, but there was a Huguenot that got kicked out of France. That's my French connection. So it's like, so yeah, it was counterintuitive. It was part of the cult that I was in. All the people up at the top were Catholic, so it was kind of like in order to get, there was a certain invisible ceiling that you had to get past.
You have to become Catholic.
Yeah. So it's weird, and so having to kind of like explain that to the priest, who was really sharp. He happened to be like the right-hand man of Mahoney, and Cardinal Mahoney down here in LA, and he's like the ecumenical guy. So he brings together the Buddhists and the Hindus and the Jewish people and the different Christian communities. He's the guy that is in charge of dealing with Billy Graham on behalf of the Catholic Church. And so I'm sitting down with him and like the other people that I'm bringing into the church with me. And he's like, so how do you all know each other? And I'm like, well, and then all four of them simultaneously are like, and I told him the story, and I was like, I can't speak about them because I have an oath, but that's my story.
Yeah.
And then he just was quiet for a while. Then he started explaining the esoteric symbolism on some of the icons that we had given him, and then he started like quoting the Sefer Yetzirah and quoting the Neophyte initiation during the homilies after that.
Wow.
And so then he would like say like, we need to raise some money, so if you guys could send some prosperity energy our way, like, are you asking the magicians in your
yes he was.
And
send the gold.
So yeah, I mean, I moved on from that. I mean, I still kind of, I don't know, like I feel an affinity for it, but I don't like go around identifying myself.
Sure.
But I'm a card-carrying Catholic, I guess.
Yes.
And I did it through the Eastern Rite, so it's like an Orthodox,
Do they actually give you cards?
No, unfortunately. But, yeah. And I sang in the choir for 4 years. So
Awesome.
in Slavonic.
That's an interesting experience.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, Jesus is cool. I just think that you gotta level up.
There's other stuff
There's
too.
other stuff.
Yeah. It's the exclusivity that I don't like.
Yes.
If it's this, then it's definitely not.
Yeah.
You're us or with us or with them. The football team mentality of it.
We live in a diverse world with a lot of diverse energies, and it's fun to explore them all. And to be told that you can't explore them because there's only one true one, that's suspicious. Like,
right.
Come on.
Yeah. But I like the idea of like, being in the catacombs in Alexandria, like hiding from the Roman soldiers, like breaking bread and talking about, love and stuff.
It's romantic.
Yeah. But then a couple hundred years later, when it was the official religion, it's like, everything gets sold out eventually.
It's true. And then people manipulate the message for their own.
Yeah, and then you hear John Lennon on a car commercial. Yeah.
And then the world turns upside down.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So tell me about your tattoos.
Oh, my tattoos.
So you got a 12-boobed double-headed serpent.
That is a matching tattoo with Genesis.
Oh, how cool.
I designed it. She wanted to get a matching tattoo with me. And it was
beautiful.
kind of like, it was last minute, She was like, draw something, do something. And so it's like a pandrogynous alien snake with multiple tits, because who doesn't love tits?
Of course.
Like creatures with 6 pairs of them, or 3 pairs rather. But I guess, it's a complicated thing. And then, that was my most recent. And then, of course, I have my psychic cross tattoo. All of this, the alien or the astronaut and the robot. That's I got that when I was 18. So 12 years ago. It's whatever. And then here is the Process Church symbol inside of a pyramid with the eye of the
Process Church. Did you already mention that?
I haven't. No, the Process Church is nothing that I was ever involved in because they're not around anymore. But in my study of different cults and theologies, I was really into the process. They had an interesting dynamic. Definitely a cult to respect as far as their money making. They would sell these magazines on the street in their full ritual garments, these spooky clothes, and sell these full colored, really visually intense magazines to get people interested. And there was a true hierarchy, and money flowed up, and it was a successful thing. They worshipped 4 deity, 4 figureheads. It was Jehovah, Christ, Lucifer, and Satan. It was just really interesting. So I was Genesis gave me a copy of Adam Parfrey of Feral House put out a book on the Process Church, and Jen gave me that, and so I was deep into the process and just studying, learning what they did. And at the time I was in New York with Jen, and we're just getting tattoos, so I just designed it. It was just one of those.
So I noticed you have it all on your left arm. Are you saving your right arm for...
Well, on the right arm I have the universal hexagram and a pyramid with an eye.
Nice.
When I was a kid, but before I was 18 allowed to have tattoos, I always envisioned myself just with one full sleeve and nothing else.
Oh, okay.
And this hasn't been completed. But
Yeah.
I also don't pay for my tattoos.
Oh, right.
So
They have to be gifts.
yes, indeed. So
Nice.
you can't just go out and fill them for free.
How cool. I just have the one.
Oh, nice.
There's a bunch of people that have the same one. And they also have this scar.
The scar?
Yeah. That was part of our 5-6 initiation.
Oh,
It was
wow.
something that was added by our group.
Interesting.
And a lot of whipping.
Yes.
And being locked in a box for 36 hours.
36 hours?
I was. Some people only got 21 hours.
Oh, my dear Lord. That's intense. That's an initiation for sure. Wow.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Did it feel like forever?
Yeah. Well,
Did you sleep? I would just
they
sleep.
give people caffeine pills.
No.
Yeah. So they have to stay awake.
Oh
Or
my-
ephedra before that was taken
Oh
off the
my
shelf.
goodness. Wow. Was it uncomfortable?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a wooden box, but there was a sleeping bag, kind of
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, a buddy of mine, his name's Adam Ellis. We went to mortuary school together. he was in this weird cult, and I think they were in Japan at the time, and they had to be buried alive for one of their initiations. Like, that's intense.
Like with a snorkel or something?
Yeah, I guess there was a way to breathe.
Wow.
I don't know how long he was under there, but he was talking about it.
That's cool.
Once they dig you out, you know, like when you're buried alive, and you like feel for sure that you're gonna die, then when they finally dig you up and take you out, it's like a rebirth.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh my god, I actually do want to live.
Yeah.
Because the whole time I was just terrified of death. You know?
Yeah, the contrast of going from darkness for like for a day and a half or whatever to the vault, which is very colorful when you're on the inside. It's just like really imprints it on you, like you've been in the void for all this time, and then you're inside of the vault.
Truly.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. That's why I love sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah, I haven't
Have you ever
done one yet.
Oh, you have to.
No.
It's so much fun.
How cool.
I suggest the first time you do it to do it for 2 hours, because they do it in hour blocks, because it takes a while to like kind of like get yourself in the zone.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's amazing. You can just like fly through space in your mind. It's really fun.
Nice.
Yes.
There's those guys in Venezuela that put the ant gloves on. You know those?
Oh, I don't know about this.
That's
Tell me.
probably the most hardcore initiation I've seen, where these bullet ants, like one sting from a bullet ant is the most painful thing. Like the poison specifically is to make you feel pain, like not to do anything else but just focus on pain.
Interesting.
And so what they do is they capture these ants and then sew them into these gloves so that their stingers are all pointed inside. So there's hundreds of ants, and then they put them on like this. They just like, and then you have to like sing this song and dance around for like however long while you're being stung by this
goodness.
and so it's just this psychedelic level of pain. Like every once in a while, like a white person or whatever will like say, "I want to do that," and then they just can't. You know, it's just too. And then like 4 hours later, there was this one guy. He was like, "That's too much," and then they walked him all the way back down to the boat, and he put his hands in the ice, and then he was like, "How did I get to the boat?" Like after you've like watched him walk the whole way, he's just
because he's so out of his mind with pain.
Yeah. And so, but they do that like every 4 years. Like once you get like the men do or whatever. Once you get to a certain age, then you do it every 4 years.
Oh my God.
And it's the most painful thing you could have happen in the rainforest is to get stung by one of these things. So it's like once you've been through that, then you're totally invincible. Like
and everything's fine.
the forest is like
Perspective is a
just
beautiful
a
thing.
playground. Yeah.
Wow. I'm fascinated with like the process of tying these ants into gloves.
Right?
That's amazing. I would love to see
I know.
that.
Not very humane, probably.
Oh, they're ants. It's okay.
Yeah. I'll try to dig up the video I saw.
Yes, please. I would love to see that. That's very interesting. Yes. Initiations need to be painful. Initiations need to take you out of your comfort
Right.
level. Last night during our initiation for Shuri Rose, she was tattooed. I cut her with a scalpel. She flogged us. We pierced our third eye. There was a lot of blood. Yeah, you see, I know.
I saw the
it's
picture too. Yeah.
still a little bit tender. Yeah, and afterwards, I met up with Chris Sanders, who I'm staying with. He took me to Cloak and Dagger, which is a members-only goth club, and I just kept the blood on my face. It was just like my face was
A lot of
covered in
people
blood.
think it's makeup.
People thought it was
They're
makeup. They were
wow,
like, "Yeah,
how did you do that?
right?"
Is that corn syrup?
They thought it was makeup. I was like, "Nope, sorry guys, this is my actual blood. Watch out."
Nice.
But yes, good times.
So any plans? Are you going to write a book? Are you going to go on a trip?
Well,
Are you going to...
presently, a friend of mine is building a website for me. I bought HannahHaddix.com last summer, and I hadn't really done anything with
I'll
it.
put a link on the episode.
Thank you. It's not fully functional yet, but he's building for me a place where I can have my art, my photo shoots, things that are normally not allowed on Facebook because of the nudity. Finally, like trying to get away from the Facebook model, even though it's wonderful and it's really helped me connect and get my
Fan base.
Yes. But it's I don't want Facebook to be owning my whole life, as well as continue to censor me and put me in Facebook jail because
Right.
they hate nipples and I don't know. I don't understand that.
Yeah, there's some kind of complex there.
It's a weird thing. So, doing HannahHaddix.com, that's a project we're working on, so I can start hopefully moving towards making my money out of creative endeavors. I don't want to work in the service industry for all time.
Yeah.
And I'm also right now collaborating with Sam Zimmerman, who does the videos for Psychic TV. He's making a new video show for Psychic TV to premiere at Psycho Las Vegas, which is this amazing festival that's happening in August of this year. It's an incredible lineup. I have never been to a festival in my life, but I'm going to Psycho Las Vegas, and it's going to be awesome. But basically, Sam Zimmerman and I are collaborating. I'm documenting my collage process and sending him all of the steps. He's gifting me a scanner so I can scan all the things, and then he's going to make video out of my collage materials.
Cool.
So it'll be a very interesting collaboration there, which is really exciting. As far as travels, I just got back from Peru. I'm hoping to go to Iceland with my father, but that's still kind of just in the mercurial realm.
I want to go to Iceland one day.
I know,
So
I do
beautiful.
too. My father was born there, and so I have family ties. And it's such a magical, wonderful place.
They're like total Vikings.
They are, and they like worship fairies and shit. It's awesome. It's so cool.
That's cool.
They're like truly connected to their land, and I think it would be a wonderful ancestral journey to go and be there. So hopefully that will happen. I've been trying to go to Iceland forever, and it just like keeps on falling through. And I think like I like to maintain the thought that that's just because like I haven't picked the right person to go with yet. Like I fell through like with an ex-boyfriend, and so maybe if I go with my dad, it'll work out.
And it's more of a family thing.
Yeah, because it's
Maybe bring
different.
a boyfriend later.
Yeah.
Show him around the place you've already been.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, Iceland, that was our thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's a big dream for sure. I know I'll be visiting New York sometime this year to see Jen. Usually we see each other at least annually. I'll go to New York and visit Jen. And it's been long overdue, so hopefully that is on the horizon. I just always, like, the things that I love in life are like making art and traveling the world and hanging out with beautiful, magical people. You know, just like my magical community is worldwide, and it's just new experiences, new places, seeing new things, old temples, old ruins.
Yeah.
You know, just seeing our planet, and there's so many different cultures and peoples and way of life, and I want to see them all. Gotta experience all of it.
Me too.
Yeah, it's really good for perspective and for understanding of your place in the world.
Yeah.
And it's really humbling. It really like puts you on a level of how truly blessed we are. I feel very fortunate to be the human that I am in the time that I am, in the place that I am, and traveling the world definitely like makes that truly like a tangible,
Yeah.
realization.
Yeah.
Yoga's great.
Yeah.
I recently started practicing. It's awesome.
I normally do non-hot, but
Yes.
I teach over at Crunch up the street.
What kind do you teach?
They call it power yoga, but I call it Hatha Vinyasa flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hatha Vinyasa, wonderful.
Yeah.
Isn't Hatha more about like holding poses for longer, whereas Vinyasa is really like movement forward?
Generally, yeah. I mean, Hatha is an old battle word meaning sun moon that really the whole of yoga can kind of be put under it. And then Vinyasa is a Sanskrit word meaning to place in a particular manner, but here in the West it's come to mean flowy yoga
Yeah.
that's been influenced by Swedish gymnastics. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, really?
basically. Yeah. So, I mean, we have our terms here in the West that seem fixed just because everybody uses them, but like
Yeah.
they're really kind of like, you know.
That's the nature of words. I
Yeah.
suppose. We all have our different connotations.
Yeah, it's fun. I wanted to be a yogi, really.
Yeah.
And I thought that by changing my career to yoga teacher, that would be a good transition between being a drone in the corporate world and being
Yeah.
a yogi, like in India, sitting on a rock.
Yeah.
So
Where are you on that time scale?
I don't know. I might be much closer to sitting on that rock than I anticipated.
Good.
So,
Good.
I mean, you know, as far as worthiness of the title yogi, I don't know, but I try to follow the yamas and the niyamas as best I can, and I mean, because they're good. I mean, like thou shalt be content no matter what. Like, okay, you know, I mean, how cool would it be if that was like one of the 10
Yeah.
commandments? Like,
Right? Thou shalt always be content.
yeah.
Genesis taught me a little mantra that what you need to do in order to achieve total contentness. 3 things. They're very hard to achieve, but you must have no expectations, no judgments, and no attachments.
Wow.
And if you can achieve those 3 things, then you will always be content. Nothing's going to affect you. And it's hard
Yeah.
because we live in a society that is fueled by judgments, expectations, and attachments.
Yeah, and every billboard and every sign,
Everything.
and every little nuance, every
Everything.
menu, every banner ad, and everything is playing on our human weaknesses that have
Totally.
been programmed in, and like all
Yes.
these.
I know, it's very insidious.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys-
that's why being
yeah.
a magician is so important, so you can have the power over those symbols and see them and recognize them.
And then use them for your advantage.
Yeah.
Yes. Take the flow of energy and redirect it for your own purposes. Changing the world around you, indeed. What do you think is the most powerful magical tool that we have as magicians?
Most powerful magical tool as magicians. Well, I mean, if I'm like taking the definition of magical tool to like include things that aren't normally considered as magical tools.
Sure, totally. Yeah.
I mean, the brain, obviously.
The brain.
The whole body, all of it. I mean, the body.
The
I
body.
mean, including the mind, the brain, the eyes, all the senses. I was talking to someone yesterday in the episode about, he was talking about chemical addiction. So I was talking about like reclaiming the body and like having full control over it. And then, yeah, I mean, no tool, it doesn't matter how cool the tool is if you don't have control over your body that's wielding the tool, you know? I mean, and that usually includes like, if there's some pollution in the body, then there's some pollution in the mind that's
Yes.
allowing for that pollution in the body, like some mental, intentional error in calculation that 1 + 1 = 3. Therefore, I should keep smoking cigarettes. You know, it's like
Right,
something
right.
isn't right. You know?
Yes.
Like there's a real reason there, and it's addiction. And
Yeah.
there's like some kind of comfort or something that getting from it or not getting from it or getting off on not getting it or whatever it is. You know?
Right. It's true. Our bodies are a total reflection of the mind.
So I was going to say memory. I was going to say because they talk about will, but you don't have will without memory. You know. I mean, and on the Tree of Life, if you think of Chesed being related to memory, and then at least the lower will. I mean, usually Chokmah's the higher will, but
Right.
like Gebura being the lower will. Like in order to conceive of a future and have a plan and have a goal, you have to like conceive of a past and see.
Sure.
Like, I've been doing nothing for 10 years, and this is where it's gotten me.
Yeah.
Like, I better do something.
Yes.
And that's where will comes from.
Yes.
So I guess memory is an important one.
Interesting.
Yeah. How about you? What do you think?
I would say, okay, so the act of creation and the power of the orgasm are they're wonderful magical tools.
Yeah.
Yes, as far as knowing the self and manifestation. This creation and orgasm.
Yeah.
But-
It's a powerful moment to rewrite. You can rewrite meta programs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you're able to harness it, you can definitely reprogram yourself.
Yeah.
If you like sigil magic, you make a sigil and then look at it while you're at that heightened moment. It definitely like sends it like an inbox into your subconscious and then it unfolds
Yeah.
in the flesh world.
Very interesting.
Yes, that's something that I learned through Genesis. In Topi, every month on the 23rd at 11:11, they do a free liquid sigil. So basically, they make a piece of art or anything that is as a artistic representation of something that they want to have happen or want to have manifest, and then you put your spit on it, you put your blood on it, and then you masturbate, and at the point of orgasm you look at the sigil, and then you put your sexual fluids onto the sigil. And typically you give the sigil to Genesis. So people were sending her, back in the day when Topi was like at the height of its activity, sending her like monthly. She would just get buckets of like these different things that, these different sigils covered in people's fluids with all their deepest desires and dreams, and very interesting. But yeah, it's really effective, and doing it on a monthly basis is really smart because you start to notice what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and how like it's really important to be specific with your intents. For example, like say you made a sigil and your intent was to have like $200,000. Like maybe you'll get that $200,000, but perhaps your mom will have to die, and then you'll get her inheritance. Like you have to be careful and specific about like what you put out there. And so doing it monthly, you have enough time to see how things unfold, but it's also like it's often enough that you can kind of like refine your technique and like fully. Cause, I mean, like this is weird shit, like, and there's no like manual about, there's no like sex magic manual of, it's all
Don Michael Gray.
it's all very experimental and a bit crazy at times, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say
Netflix.
Right. Totally. I'd rather make sigils and chill than Netflix and chill.
Right?
It's truly. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, as humans, as a society, we really need to get away from this constant consuming of other people's creations and start making our own.
Yeah.
Like movies are great, and the entertainment business, whatever. Like there are things of value that are created,
Being
but
snuck in every now and then.
yeah, but just like constantly consuming just like crap on screens.
Yeah.
It's killing the mind. It's killing the creative. It's killing the imagination.
Yeah.
I think people need to start writing their own stories. Writing their own stories that is their life. Like taking control of their narrative, taking control of
just walking old scripts.
Yes, and just constantly consuming other people's things. It just like muddies the mind, and you lose yourself in it. When you start identifying yourself with your favorite TV shows instead of your
which character in your favorite TV show,
right? Instead of your own accomplishments or like your own being.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point?
Yeah.
What is the point of existence if you're just going to follow this path and do exactly as society tells you to do, which is to consume. It's such an empty existence. And our culture, it's built on that,
Yeah.
We have to free ourselves because no one's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
We must. So, create your way forward, always. Write your own story.
So Terence McKenna was talking about how art is the solution.
Art is the solution, absolutely. That's a smart man.
Yeah.
Very smart man, Terence McKenna. He's done some drugs, he's seen some things. Yes.
What was it? He visited all the religions of the world, but none of them weighed up to. I forget his exact measurement or the exact quote, but there's still assignment in a dark room. It's like beat out all the religious experiences.
Amazing! Wow. Still assignment in a dark room. Yes. psychedelics are best in the dark. It's true. I think the most intense drug experience I had was not ayahuasca. It was actually liquid ketamine.
Oh.
I was doing that almost every day for 2 months.
That could be lethal, right?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
No.
I'm thinking of something else. K2 or something?
Yeah, ketamine is a horse tranquilizer.
Oh.
And it's completely different than so liquid ketamine, you inject it intramuscularly. So most, like when I say ketamine, most people think of the powder form, and that's a completely different substance. Like once you heat it up and turn it into powder, it changes the chemical properties of it, so it's a different drug. But a liquid ketamine, it's complete ego loss. Like you leave your body, you're not even aware of it's like I'm no longer Hannah Haddix. I'm just like this sentient thing flying through the cosmos, visiting these different realms. Just like you inject this stuff into your muscles, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I am in the temples of the gods, and there's relics of every god or goddess that's ever been worshipped on Earth for all time, going forward and back in time for all infinity, and here I am, just like in this dark, damp place with all of these like golden statues, marble statues, stone, like metals that I've never even seen, jewels that are of colors beyond the visible spectrum, and then you take ketamine, and then you are being crushed by a demon, the name King, with these stilettos, and he's breaking every bone in your body, right? And then you come out of it, and you're just like touching your body, like, I can't believe I have a body. Oh my God, I'm alive. I thought for sure I was like died in this different dimension. It's really wild.
I had this great dream the other day that I'm sure is related to what I'm going through in my life, where I was on the freeway and I was going really fast, and then there was a U-Haul in front of me, and I was going to crash into it. So I slowed down, and I was trying really hard not to crash into the U-Haul, And then the road just like dropped, and I kept going forward. And I was like flying, and at that point I started to suspect maybe this was a dream. And I was like hitting signs and stuff and looking down at the U-Haul down below. And I was like, then I woke up and I was like, that's a good dream.
Yeah, interesting.
So there is going to be a U-Haul in my near future.
Right, yeah, you're moving. Big things on the horizon. Dreams are great. I do a lot of dream work. My favorite way to become lucid in a dream is actually... So, a lot of it's a common thing. People are like, to be lucid in a dream, you like flick a light switch and see if the lights come on, or like something with light. The way I frequently find myself lucid is if I get a cell phone or a laptop, any electronics, if I get them wet and they still work, I'm like, this has to be a dream. I just dropped the cell phone in the ocean and it's still functional, and then you wake up and you get to do all the fun stuff.
When I was a kid, I set my alarm on my watch to go off every 15 minutes. And then when it would go off, I'd turn it off and I'd look at the time, look away, and then look back again to make sure it still said the same thing. And so what would happen when I was dreaming was, one thing, I couldn't turn it off. And the other thing is I'd look at the time, look away, and look back. It'd be completely different.
Interesting.
And so then I knew I was dreaming.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good technique.
Yeah, signs usually change. And there was one dream that it was freaky because the signs weren't changing. And I was like, and not only that, but because the place was supposedly, like, I'm in a lucid dream, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, the signs aren't changing. That's odd for a lucid dream. And someone's like, oh, that's because this place is being created by the collective visualization of the Sea Org. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Could I talk to whoever's in charge? And they're like, sure, come with me. And it was like really freaky. And they were like, what are you doing here? How did you get here? You're not supposed to be here,
Whoa.
And then to leave, they were like, we need to send you home. So they drove me to a Delta flyer from Star Trek The Next Generation, and then it took me up to the Enterprise that was floating up in orbit, and then as soon as we docked onto the Enterprise, I woke up in bed.
Amazing.
It's really weird.
That is a weird one. What do you think about dreams? What do you think that is?
I think that there's I'm skeptical about the way that the way that I was kind of brought up, or I guess a lot of people assume that there's like astral projection on one hand and then dreams on the other, where I don't think that the line is so clear between the two.
Sure.
And I think that there's a subtle connection between our brains, like collectively, that gets transmitted through eye contact and through everything else, and vocal intonation. You know, just like we don't have like a physical connection between neuron and neuron, but there might as well be, because we both know what we're both talking about. We're both having a conversation. Like there is an exchange of thoughts happening.
Yeah.
And so, in a similar way, I don't think that, like when people say, "Is this real or is it in my head?" I don't think there's necessarily a line there either.
Sure.
Like so what's going on in my head, and as a magician, you start off with what's going on in your head, and then it manifests outside, like because you made it clear and you made it fixed and you made it work and you did it at the right time or whatever, you know. So with dreams, I think sometimes it's we're trying to tell ourselves something, you know, where we're processing through something, and quite often when that is the case, there's usually other people involved too. So like someone else might have the same dream or that kind of thing, and then the more open you are to the awareness of those synchronicities, then the more you start to see them, and then the more kind of skeptical you are about them, the more they start to go away. You know, but that's all the power of the brain, one way or the other, to create or uncreate those things. So, Kelly,
dreams, it's our subconscious minds playing out all the things that we're not allowing ourselves to experience and think. It's like therapy in a way. It's a reflection of what's going on inside and outside. I think our dreams, it's the power. It's really powerful, the symbols and the things that we have, and how, you know, there are all these books about dream interpretation where people say like, oh, if you dream about a body of water, that means you're going through an emotionally tumultuous time. Right. And it's like, yeah, but maybe for you that was your connotation. But I think dream interpretation is all very personal, because we all have these different connotations to these different archetypes. Or
I might have had a pet snake, and snakes might scare the hell out of someone else.
Exactly. And you know, snakes could be like a kundalini or like a powerful force. It could be sexual, or to another person it could be like Satan himself. You know, So it's a very personal thing, and I think it's really fascinating to pay attention to dreams and document them, and just the reoccurring places and themes and symbols, and then realizing what it truly means to you, how your subconscious speaks to you. And then I really love incorporating dreams into waking life. For example, often if I dream about wearing a particular pair of clothes, or, you know, like a shirt, I'll like wake up and put that shirt on, or like if I have a certain meal, or just like anything that I can do to tie the waking life and the dreaming life more intimately, because I feel like if we integrate things from our dreams into waking life and vice versa, we can merge the two worlds together. I have suffered, I say with quotes, from sleep paralysis for the majority of my life, and it's really fascinating that time when you're in sleep paralysis, where you are eyes open, fully aware of your surroundings, except for there's just like a couple things off, and then there's usually like a terrifying deity or entity rather, not deity, looming over, or like strangling you or molesting you, or all the things that they do. And it's really interesting that you can be totally awake, totally aware, totally cognizant of your surroundings, and then to physically go through these things and see these other realms. And it's like the veil has fallen for that short moment that may feel like forever, and then it's usually really terrifying, and you shake yourself awake, but it's like finally you're able to move your body, and the room is as it was, except for the few things that were off are no longer there. You know, there's no longer an undulating orb of blood, you know, looming over your bed. And just, it's, so, I don't know, it's like, I've always been searching and wondering, is that experience of sleep paralysis and seeing those entities and experiencing those things during like a waking reality, are those actually entities that, or is it all in the brain? Is it something that we create? And I don't know. I still haven't found the answer, and I still don't, like, sometimes I think it's just, chemicals and a dream experience, but then other times it's like, no, that was real. Like, what is reality? Is like, are those things, I'm perceiving that entity, I'm experiencing it through my senses. I can feel it, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can touch it, I can hear it, all the things. So, is it a trick of the mind? Is it an entity? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's perception. Even like if you take an acid trip or mushrooms or any sort of psychedelic and you see those things, it's like, are we just seeing what's really there and we're not able to see otherwise?
Right.
Or is there our crazy, beautiful brains like creating all of this for us?
Or maybe is it like radio frequencies? So like two people could both take acid and one person sees angels and another person sees demons, but they're both right. Mm-hmm. They're just looking at different levels.
Yeah, different
And then
lenses.
the third person who sees nothing is also right because they're seeing just through the eyes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting. But, we all create our own reality tunnels. We all have our own reality tunnels.
Even
and
while we're awake. Like, what I think of you, what I think of,
Absolutely. So here you are experiencing all this, and I'm here, and I can agree that we're in a coffee shop in Beverly Hills.
Right.
But, I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Like, has coffee been invented yet? Like, I don't know. And especially after realizing that time is not linear and that everything that ever has and ever will happen is happening in the now. And that's really hard to wrap our right? It's really hard to wrap our time-conditioned minds around that, but it's like, it's all simultaneous, it's all now.
Yeah.
All the karma is perfect, it's all played out already.
Because the Big Bang explosion is the momentum that, among other things, is dancing into existence our cells in our brain and the atoms that make them up.
Yeah.
So to think outside of the timeline, it's to think outside of what we are. Mm-hmm. But to think that there is nothing outside of what we are is arrogance. I mean,
absolutely. Arrogance and just ignorance.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe...
It's that cave parable of all over.
Yeah.
The cat's hiding. You can't see me because I can't see you.
Totally. I think that anything that we can fathom is, if we're capable of dreaming it, of imagining it, of coming up with it, then somewhere it exists because we have created, like, it's there.
Yeah.
That's why being a creator and being actively creative is so important. Because we are the gods. We have that energy within us. Planet Earth is heaven and hell all in one. This is it. And here we are, and we have the power of creation, we have the power of changing the way we perceive, we have the power of rewriting our memories, we have the power of changing the world and the experiences of other peoples. And how exciting.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
And there's so many tools and so many portals to deeper understanding and effective ways to live and to be and to create. I think that if everybody was more honest with themselves and could shamelessly express themselves, it would get rid of a lot of pain and misery. I think self-denial and shame is so toxic. And I just wish people would be more open about the less glamorous things in life, not try to change, the whole culture of the Photoshop and making everything look a certain way, getting rid of the flaws, getting rid of the, flaws. Why is it a flaw? What
right.
flaw?
Who decided that's a flaw?
Yeah. Who decided that that's a bad thing? Why is it so taboo about aging, getting older. You know,
Right.
the way that we treat our elderly and our sick and our dying in this culture is horrific. You know, we just like sweep them under the rug, hide them in these nursing homes, and like, why don't we need to embrace this? This is the human experience. You know, like, we're not all 23 for our whole lives. You know, it's like we need to embrace the changes and the different conditions that is being human. There's just so much. There's so much shame, and I think that is a shame.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I think by shamelessly expressing myself and putting all the things that I do on the internet that most people wouldn't talk about, I have a lot of people tell me that that's very inspiring for them, and it helps them embrace their less glamorous things about them. And it's always really good to hear, you know, because I think it matters, and we need to be more honest with ourselves and the humans around us about the nature of our realities, and stop hiding from ourselves, and stop expecting other people's lives to be a reflection of ours, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, we all have we're all writing our own stories. Why would you want to have the same story as someone else?
Right.
You know?
Or a story you don't want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, people create these miserable narratives for themselves, and they just live
because
it.
they think they deserve it.
Yeah, totally. But no.
I think that non-judgment is a good step toward non-shame. Because for me, like the worst, things that I don't want to embody this because my younger self would have judged me. You know what I mean? Like when I was 14, I would have said this and that about the things I'm doing now. You know.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, eventually you have to get over being judged by your younger self.
Totally.
And then you can start to like let go of shame and stuff. But if someone, not you, but if a person is in the state of judgment, then it's hard to get to a state of non-shame when you're judging others,
Definitely.
Because then you're holding yourself to some standard. And you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror. Am I holding up to the standard? And it's like, no, dude, just chill.
Yeah, it's so true. It's funny. That kind of reminds me of this evening. I basically Irish goodbye, which is like I was drunk. I was like at a party drinking with some friends, and I just like got to that point where I just left without saying goodbye to anybody. It was like at 4 a.m. in Seattle, a rainy night. I was walking home alone, and I was crossing in front of this car, and he stopped at a stoplight, and he honked his horn at me, and it scared me. And like in that moment, it's like something took something came over me, and I threw this guy's door open, the passenger door, and I hopped in his car, and I was like, excuse me, like, why are you honking at me? And now you're gonna give me a ride home because it's raining, and that's not okay. And he was like, oh my god, please don't hurt me. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm in a belly shirt right now, and like you're like 200 pounds bigger than me, like there's no way I'm gonna hurt you. And so basically I like invited this middle-aged man back to my rooftop, who I had just completely terrified by jumping in his car. And by the end of the evening, we hung out for a couple hours, and like he saw my altars, and I was talking to him about the power of creation and all these things. And by the end, he was reduced to tears. He was like crying in my arms, basically being like, I can never be like you because I'm so worried about what my grown children and ex-wife would think of me, and I want to do this and that, but I can't. And he was just like he was so stuck. And the reason he was driving around at 4 a.m. is because he couldn't sleep, because he was so unhappy with his life and his being. And I gave him the no attachments, no judgments, no expectations thing. And he later emailed me a couple weeks later saying like that it really helped him, and he was like trying to like work more about taking his own life into his hands. It's just like, I feel like that's not an uncommon thing for people to just be, wandering around unable to sleep because they're so miserable with their lives, because they're worried about what their boss would think, what their ex-wife thinks, like what, all these people that influence them, but they're just like building their own prisons by allowing that to to affect them. You know, being free, and this is truly free and truly comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, is so extremely rare. Which is so strange that, you know, here we are in this Western civilization, which is basically, you know, at least as a facade, is built on the individual being able to achieve what they want. You know, the American dream is like, you can be anything in America. You can, you know, you can dream big and live the dreams. And it's like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening at all. And I don't know what it's going to take to get people to wake up. And I know that maybe that sounds maybe a bit arrogant, that just as far as feeling like I understand things better, because maybe I don't. Maybe the guy who's working as a CEO for Nestle, who thinks that the rain should be privatized, hasn't figured out more than I do, but I don't know. I look around and I see a lot of misery and a lot of self-made prisons. Because we build our own prisons, you know, we all do. Even those who are in those physical prisons, you know, they chose that. There are consequences, you know, societal consequences for actions, and we choose all the things. We choose all the things that happen to us, even the accidents, it's like energetically, karmically, we're always working out our karma. We're always working out past lives, future lives. It's all happening here and now, right? But it's everything that happens to us is a blessing and a curse, and it's all by our design, even if it's not a conscious thing. That's why it's so important to become conscious of it, so you can start to direct your life the way that you want.
Yeah.
Something that you think is fun, like going to Nepal.
Yeah.
Moving to Nepal and
making a podcast.
Yeah, being a yogi on a rock, sitting in lotus position, you know, like, if that's what you want to do, if that's what feels...
For a while.
Yeah.
Until I figure out what I want to do, you know.
But you're always figuring out. It's,
that's true. Yeah.
How boring would it be to have everything figured out, right?
Happily ever after.
That doesn't exist. And I'm so glad it doesn't, because that would get really boring.
Yeah.
That would be so boring.
If that was the goal,
I know.
to get the prince to marry you.
Oh gosh. Seriously, the prince.
Does the shoe fit?
Yeah, right.
Lucky you. Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Happily ever after.
That's some silly, wacky shit.
Yeah. Even Disney admits it now.
Yeah. Oh, Disney.
Well, thank you for everyone for putting up with all of this noise, with the noise of the coffee bean.
Yes.
I hope it wasn't too awful. Do you have any thoughts before we wrap up here?
Well, I guess my final message, which I think I've talked about, was just like, please create, and please be shameless, and know that you are a perfect, beautiful being, and you can do all the things of your deepest dreams and desires.
Push those boundaries.
Yes. Too. Break the taboos, push the boundaries, experience life. It tastes great.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Esoterinerd podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Hannah, for being our guest on the Esoterinerd podcast tonight. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda and his father and the other monks at Jofukuin Temple on Mount Koyasan for the music you're hearing right now. Thank you to Tangerine Dream for the album Ricochet, which played in the background during the Transformations and Footnotes segment. Special thanks to Camille and Kennerly for the harp intro and outro to the interview itself. And special thanks to you, the Esoterinerd, listening to this podcast. Until next time, good night.